The new Makibishi spikes ninjutsu in Naruto to Boruto Shinobi Striker is no joke. At first, I thought this was going to be a mediocre ninja tool, but it is proving to be one of the most lethal additions for the healer class. Some of the basic characteristics of the Makibishi spikes are that they slow down and damage your opponents over time. It is important to mention that the spikes only provide the movement and damage debuff if your opponents are standing on them, meaning that the moment they step off the spikes, the debuffs are gone. If you can catch your opponent and keep them in the spikes for the duration of the ninja tool, we found that they can lose about a quarter of their health bar. What's not widely known though is that in addition to comboing perfectly with ninjutsu like Tsukuyomi, this ninja tool can also interrupt and stun opponents trying to charge at you, giving you an opportunity to counterattack with ninjutsu like Paralyzing Jutsu or Crimson Drizzle. The timing for the stun can be a little bit tricky though, so my recommendation is to go into the practice pit and perfect the timing with a friend. As you can see from this clip, you need to throw the spikes right when your opponent is about to hit you. This will give you an opportunity to counterattack, but you want to be mindful that only a handful of ninjutsu combo well with this stun, and that Tsukuyomi is not one of them. Although it can land from time to time, it does not do so with enough consistency for me to recommend that as a setup. Where the Tsukuyomi and spikes combo shine most though is when your opponent has already been caught in the genjutsu. Once caught, you want to pop the ninja tool on the area where your opponent is and watch them take damage over time without being freed from the technique. This same effect can be seen when using Shadow Possession, Mind Transmission, Thunder Blast, and Paralyzing Jutsu, but I want to add that it does not do so when you're trying to practice it on bots when in the pit. So therefore, if you are trying to perfect the Tsukuyomi into the spikes combo, my recommendation is that you try to do that with a friend. And the reason for that is because when you perfect it, this actually gives you a lot of different options when it comes to thinking about combat healer builds to use in online game modes, whether that's 4v4 or survival mode. And with that being said, let's actually take a look at some of the builds that the house and I found together. The first build on our list is going to be one of the most lethal builds in the lineup, and that is Paralyzing Jutsu with the Shadow Stitching Jutsu. Now, the interesting thing about this particular build is that you cannot sub the basic heavy of the Scattered Rain Scientific Ninja tool, which will give you an opportunity to be able to provide an additional stun to your opponents by landing the spikes. Now, once again, the spikes into the Paralyzing Jutsu are a perfect combination. So when you add the Scattered Rain into that mix-up, that leaves a perfect setup for Shadow Stitching. And then because the sub is still locked, you can go into your melee combos and essentially delete your opponent's health bar. The next build on the list is one of my personal favorites, and that is Tsukuyomi with Shadow Possession. Now, one of the great things about this build is that the Makibishi spikes do not interrupt your opponent's ability to remain in the ninjutsu. And one of the cool things about the Crimson Spear is that similar to the Scattered Rain, the heavy attack is not subbable, meaning that you can land Tsukuyomi directly after interrupting your opponent's charge attack, then pop the spikes, and then essentially wait until your opponents have fallen out of the genjutsu, pop Shadow Possession to keep them in there for several seconds, and then essentially just hit them with the second phase of Shadow Possession and go in for a little bit of a melee combo and watch them be gone. This next build uses two of my favorite ninjutsus, which of course is Chakra Scalpel and Tsukuyomi. Now, the cool thing about this particular build is that it is more melee focused, but the great thing about Chakra Scalpel is that it does have the ability to take away your opponent's ninjutsus, which include their secret techniques. Now, as I mentioned, in this particular clip, I was able to land Tsukuyomi, but that is one of the rare times that I have been able to do it when facing against other opponents. So you want to be mindful of when using Chakra Scalpel that ideally you want to go in for the stun versus the spiked stun, because of the fact that there's a strong possibility that you may miss Tsukuyomi instead of landing it the way that I have in this clip. But as we mentioned, you want to definitely go into Chakra Scalpel, into the spikes, or a stun into Tsukuyomi, into the spikes, and then essentially into your melee combos to finish your opponent off. For this build, we are using the Scatter Rain Staff along with the Paralyzing Jutsu and the Lava Style Jutsu. Now, as you can see here from this clip, essentially what we're doing is we're using the 2 lights in the staff's combo to set up the Lava Style. Now, one of the cool things that I want to remind everyone about Lava Style is that in addition to doing a decent amount of damage when you are up close to your opponents, it also does burn damage over time. And especially with this combo, given how low my health bar was once I got hit with the Lava Style, even if I was to try to get away or somehow survive this combination, I would still die from the burn damage given how low my actual health bar is. So you want to definitely keep that in mind when using this build, that if you know that your opponents are low and they don't have any heals, that you can just leave them alone and wait until they die. Okay. For this build, we are using Paralyzing Jutsu with Tsukuyomi. And so essentially how you want to do it is you want to set up your opponents by stunning them with the spikes. Then essentially after they are stunned from the spikes, going into the Paralyzing Jutsu. And while they're being held in place, pop Tsukuyomi, then pop some additional spikes to make sure they're doing damage over time. And as they're coming out of Tsukuyomi, you hit them with 2 light attacks, do a dash forward, and then finish them off with the 3 light attacks in the backhanded explosion to essentially delete their health bar. When I first tried out this combination, I am not gonna lie to y'all, I was actually quite shocked at how well this build worked together. I mean, the fact that Yari wasn't even able to do anything is quite insane. So essentially what you want to do with this build is you ideally want to bait your opponent's sub, go into a 1-hit stun, into a 2-light combo, which provide a stun, allowing you to pop Tsukuyomi and then throw the spikes down. And then as they're trying to come up from Tsukuyomi, you make sure that you pop Thunder Blast and you charge it to the second phase to ensure they don't have a substitution. And then honestly, just sit there and watch them die. That's really all to it. It's a pretty simple, but yet effective and lethal build. My God. Our last 2 builds will be using the Mind Transmission Jutsu, and here for this one you can see that we're using Paralyzing Jutsu alongside the Mind Transmission Jutsu. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, Mind Transmission along with Paralyzing Jutsu will not be interrupted when an opponent is in the spikes. Now, for both Paralyzing Jutsu and Mind Transmission, you ideally don't want to throw out the spikes while they're in that technique. You want to wait until the spikes are already down, and that is how they will not be interrupted once you activate it. And as you can see here from this clip, once your opponent is activated in it, basically once you are provided with the option to do the explosion, I would definitely recommend that you do so. For our last build, we are using Tsukuyomi as well as Mind Transmission Jutsu. Now, as you can see here, ideally you want to bait your opponent's sub if you're going to be trying to go in for the one-hit stun. And so essentially, once you bait your opponent's sub and then basically hit them with the one-hit stun, you want to pop Tsukuyomi, and as they're in Tsukuyomi, once again pop the spikes, and as they're coming out, make sure you hit them with Mind Transmission. And then while they're in Mind Transmission, once you receive the option to pop the secondary activation, you would do so, and by doing that you would essentially delete their health bar while they are still taking damage on top of the spikes, making this a really cool and OP build. My recommendation though is to definitely practice this in the pit, because you're gonna definitely need to practice and perfect the timing from Tsukuyomi to Mind Transmission. As a bonus clip, Scouts and I wanted to showcase how this build works with 100 healings. Now, if you don't know this, 100 healings is one of the most difficult techniques to land. Of course, some skilled players are able to land it effectively, but oftentimes you will miss the technique or not even be able to one-shot opponents when using it. So we wanted to highlight that the spikes along with the paralyzing jutsu is a pretty amazing clip. So with that being said, thank you everyone who has stood to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. Please let me know in the comments below which builds are your favorite builds to use, and also too, if you have already found a build of your own to use with the Makibishi spikes, please let me know what that build is in the comments below. And as always, y'all, it's hard out here, but your boy wouldn't know. Period.